Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This big show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of What If. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was actually quite surprised by this episode because going into this episode, I was under the impression like, oh, Killmonger, Eric, he saves Tony, so like he's going to end up being a hero and stuff like that. But, because especially from the Watcher's line of like, because Tony never went through what he was, like, heroes was a kind of forged through darkness, and it's like, through that dark experience, Tony became the hero that he would be to help eventually save the universe. I mean, when you think about the implications of it, like, Tony helped create the end-game time travel, so, like, they'd probably, if it wasn't for him, they probably, who knows what the blip looks like. And, like, when this universe's version of Endgame, when Thanos eventually does show up looking for the Infinity Stones, like, how does that play out in this universe? Like, because Tony's the one that kind of helped forge, like, the version of time travel that they have, Would they eventually come up with would Bruce eventually come up with a different version of time travel? Once again, just like how the dominoes, because that's the thing, like one thing can have such a drastic change on the universe. Like we don't see the full ripple effects of what this could affect going forward, I mean, no Tony also means potentially no Vision. Wanda and everything still exists because Stark Industries weapons still led to like, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver ending up in the situation there. That didn't change too much, so and that's still potentially something out there in the universe that could play out. But it's like a lot, like I said, like Jarvis becoming Vision probably wouldn't happen in this universe because there's no Tony. There's still Bruce, sure, but it's like it took both of them coming together after the events of Avengers and everything for Tony to decide like, oh, he wanted kind of to create something that would protect the world from what's coming, and that eventually led to Vision / Ultron beaming, so like a lot of that kind of disappears, but like I said, I thought the line of like Tony is that's one hero that no longer exists, but in this particular case he would say, the Watcher was like, but it gives another a chance. I was like, oh, okay, so this time Eric gets to be a hero. But to be fair, everyone's a hero of their own story. No one thinks themselves a villain. But then in retrospect, after finishing the episode, I'm like, right, it makes perfect sense. It's talking about another chance for Eric to do what he was doing in Black Panther, like what he had planned, except now he gets another shot at it to come at it from a different perspective. Because also interesting, I think, the timing and stuff like that too, because I think you get a peek into the ripple of, maybe there's a lot more time skipping around than I kind of give it credit for, because obviously him saving Tony takes place in 2008, because that's when Iron Man takes place, but the Black Panther movie doesn't start until because did we ever find out when T'Challa actually became the Black Panther in the movies? Because, obviously he's wearing the suit. And I guess I was under the impression he had become the Black Panther by Civil War. I thought, he just took the suit. And I guess he was already the Black Panther at the time. I just... Maybe that's just kind of my mistake. Because I guess, I thought he took the suit and everything just to get his revenge. But I think at the time he was actually the Black Panther at the time. But I just didn't think about it. But, because like I said, for me, that time frame didn't match up. Not unless years passed and stuff like that. But it seems like all that went down pretty quickly. But the fact is, he saved Tony, and it's like, oh yeah, his explanation for it is I was undercover with the 10 rings, so I knew that Tony's about to be assassinated. I know that you were behind that, Obadiah, and it's like, whoa, wait, what? So he took out Obadiah. You're like, oh wow, he's all right. He's making quick work of all of this. But then, Pepper out of anyone is the most I don't trust this dude, especially because it's considering his past and everything. Because Rhodey looks into it, and it's yeah, he's done some assassinations, but at the end of the day, he is kind of like a Navy SEAL. He did save Tony's life, but for her, it's everyone gets around Tony because they want something. It's yeah, but it seems like he doesn't want anything. For her, it's yeah, that's the most suspicious thing. What is it? Why? Everyone wants something, and if you don't want anything, that just makes you that much more suspicious to her. She's very protective of Tony. She was always kind of that person looking out for him when he wasn't looking out for himself. Even that line between them was kind of messed up. Between Tony and Eric of to killers, because it's right, I want you to be my security, having, I mean, I don't want you to have to kill people, but, having a killer on the payroll, it's on, and so they end up building his idea. Like, he wants to make like a drone that is self-sufficient, that you don't need a pilot for. And it's just like, oh, here's the design for it. And he's like, oh, it's very interesting design. He's like, what? I like anime. He's like, yeah, I mean, we might end up with just like a Gundam model, like a very weird Gundam model at the end of this. But they put in the work to basically make the drone be able to adapt to combat, like be able to fight like him and stuff like that. And you're like, this is interesting. Even him suggesting like, oh, here's the vibranium, like, oh, we could use this as a tool and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I know how to get more vibranium. And he decides to like, Rhodey gets sent out to like make a deal with Claw. Notice no missing arm, because obviously Avengers Age of Ultron hasn't happened in this universe yet, so like he hasn't lost his arm in the process. But obviously, like, trying to make it a more above board is sending a military person like Rhodey. But the moment, like, it goes quiet, I was like, wait, what's going on here? I thought, like, when the Black Panther showed up, I was like, is that T'Challa or is that Eric? Did Eric just actually, like, did he orchestrate all of this? But it's like, no, it was T'Challa, like, coming to get the vibranium that was stolen to come after Claw and everything. But then it was like, nope, this is all part of Eric's plan. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry I had to come down to this, cousin, but for him, this fight's too much of a greater cause. Because once again, this is built off of, like, this is the same Eric that would be in Black Panther. His plans he got the biggest support he could get, and that was with Tony's help. And he was able to orchestrate all this. He was able to slip into like the right circles at the right time to kind of because Tony is indebted to him, because it's like, oh, like, not only did you save my life, you also found a guy that who was responsible for trying to kill me and everything. So, but ended up killing his own cousin, because obviously he came super close to killing T'Challa and Black Panther, but now it's like he gets another opportunity to do it in this universe. And so, and he actually does it this time. And he ends up killing Rhodey, because it's all about, like, you know, how can you work inside of a system? But he's like, for Rhodey, it's like the only way you can change things is from the inside. He's like, nah, you can burn it down to the ground. Like, he's a very extremist on this fight of, like, it's the thing of, like, you can understand why he's fighting the fight he's just going about it the most extremist route. Because I think there's also a parallel that, I guess at the time I never really thought of it. I guess it's kind of almost like that. Because, you know, Professor X and Magneto kind of represent, you know, the Malcolm X and the Martin Luther King Jr. like perspectives on, like, that's, you know, because that's what mutants are just an allegory for. So I think I never thought about it at the time, but I think the parallels could be seen there as well between, like, T'Challa kind of representing the Martin Luther King Jr. route, where you could make it seem like Eric. I don't know if I'm not well versed in history, so I don't know if Malcolm X would be to this extreme, but I know that he was seen kind of on like that more like whatever we got to do it, like, type of thing, where it's like, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. kind of spoke more on non-violence. Like, Malcolm X was more on, like, if we have to turn to violence, we have to turn to violence. So, like, like I said, at the time I never thought about the parallels, but now sitting here thinking about it, I think that parallel between Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X can kind of apply in this regard as well. But the machinations of just everything he's like set in motion, like, you know, one country's burying Rhodey, the other one is burying its future king, you know. And so Eric's kind of orchestrated this whole thing of like, right, and then Tony's not a gullible idiot. He figured it out, right, don't try to like leave Jarvis out, because Jarvis figured it out. And it's like Tony ends up turning the drones against him, but Eric ends up beating it, because it's like, right, if you know my style, I just have to freestyle. And he ends up killing Tony, which Tony was like, I thought we were in this together. He's like, the fact is we're not fighting the same fight. He was like, but like, we're both orphans trying to live up to do right by our fathers. And he was like, the fact is that you can't tell the difference with us is the problem. It's like, but like, between our circumstances. And it's like, that is, you know. And even later on, painting Tony as a villain and stuff like that. Obviously, Pepper's just like, nah, something's not right about this. Like, you have been at the center of all this murder, and it's just like, nah, like, cut her some slack. Her and Tony were tight. And just like, how like smug he is about it. And so Ross is like, you know, they're taking over like Stark Industries, and now they're like putting those drones into production, and they're gonna like wage war against Wakanda, because like, yo, Wakanda doing what it's doing, like they're waging war against us. But lo and behold, goes to Wakanda, he kills Claw, just like in Black Panther Present. It's like, hey, this is my gift, this enemy that stole from you, this is, you know, and it's like he gave the vibranium to the US, I'm home and everything, which I'm like, I wonder, does he not know in this continuity that, well, because, well, I think he will eventually kill T'Challa's dad, just because, well, T'Challa's dad was already dead at the time, obviously in Black Panther, so he couldn't get his revenge against him because he already died in Civil War. But I think he's like, oh, he's got to earn everybody's trust. So like, you know, it's like, once again, playing both sides. Like, because I was like, right, like, because at the end of the day, whose side is he on? He's on his side. But at the same time, it's like, it's that complicated thing of like, right, I get it. You're also like trying to help out so many people because you're trying to do what Wakanda. That's the sad thing. Wakanda would eventually get to the point what he wants. They would just go about it not as of a nasty way that would lead to two countries warring with each other. You know, there's going to be a lot of death and bloodshed potentially on the horizon because of what Eric's doing. He's going the very bloody route. And granted, yes, Eric dies in the original timeline, in the main timeline of the MCU, like the main universe we're in. But the fact is that his death is what propelled it. Like his battle with T'Challa, like made T'Challa go like, right, Wakanda has to change. We have to be more open to the world. So, you know, support people, like, you know, because recognizing like what happened to Eric should have never happened. But Eric is just so blinded by his own need for revenge and his own like moral compass on how things should be handled. Like his need for revenge is what's charging. Like, so it's not as altruistic. It loses some of it. Like, I get the fight you're fighting. Like I said, I just don't like the way you're going about it. It's a sad aspect of it. Killing all these people, you know. Even him being like, right, like even when he killed Tony, he was like, I was hoping that, you know, he legitimately liked Tony. He was like, I was hoping that you would never have to be one of these marks on my body. I didn't remember that being what that was about. Like, maybe they brought that up during Black Panther. I didn't remember. I've seen Black Panther twice. I don't remember. Like, I'm not saying it didn't, but I didn't remember that being what that was. I was like, oh, how very, like, Victor Zsasz of you. Granted, different circumstances too, but the same outlet of, like, oh, the people you killed, you marked yourself. Like I said, I didn't remember that. Like, it probably is in the movie. I just can't believe I forgot that, if that's the case. Nevertheless, like, coming in, playing like the lost child, especially in a situation where like you murdered their child and, you know, you're here playing like the lost son of Wakanda, you know, it's just, it sucks so much that you would do that. And you put them in a position, like, once again, it's just like contingency planning, like, lead them past the barrier. Once the barrier goes down, it shuts off like the connection that they have. Then he reactivates him. It's like, oh, Tony must have put a backup in it. And then we have to go to battle. That way you're out in the front line showing like, yeah, I'm all about this battle. It's like, yeah, for Wakanda and everything. It's like, you're so, you know, because it's not just wanting this to be a home. He wants so much more. He ends up becoming the Black Panther and everything. He goes about it he goes about it probably I'd say even a worse way than he did in Black Panther. He kind of created a civil war to do it in Wakanda, but now he's got all of Wakanda back in, because once again he's almost like the prodigal son, the lost prodigal son returning. But also, like, he didn't have to he didn't challenge T'Challa to get it. It's like, no, and it's almost like, oh, you earned it by like helping and save us and stuff like that. You're running through the battlefield. I also appreciate, like, you know, because I don't know, they already talked about, like, T'Challa's mom being a warrior. Like, I'm sure, like, everyone in Wakanda was a warrior at some probably have just taken a more political point, but it's like seeing her, like, ravaging on the battlefield. It's like, yo, we never got to really see that side of her in the movies, obviously. But I was like, I wonder in the future, do they ever plan on, like, playing into that more or not? I don't know. Because obviously, like, Shuri was on the battlefield, Lupita's character, I was wondering, like, well, I guess, like, maybe she's still out kind of doing, like, spy work currently, and with T'Challa being gone, like, T'Challa's the reason why she came back from, like, the code, out of the code, you know, spy terms-wise, why she came back to Wakanda after everything, like, her dad. I'm sure she probably came back for, like, she's probably, like, maybe there, but maybe, like, T'Challa dying probably made her less likely to come back. I mean, his father's death is what made her come back to Wakanda, like, but it's like maybe they weren't able to reach her because, like, once again, T'Challa had to be the one to go out and find her. He wanted to be the one to reach out to her. But the fact is that, you know, it all worked out for him. And I thought it was interesting, like, on the plane of the ancestors, like, you know, T'Challa comes to him and was like, was it worth it? And he was like, yeah, like, I'll do whatever I have to do to get it all done. And he was like, the fact of the matter is power not, yeah, but, like, essentially, like, the power unearned, you destroy yourself at the end. Like, it will get the better of you. And I wish we had a little more time so we could see what his comeuppance actually looks like. Because we get a little hint to it, because now it's like the army, like, you know, Ross is all about, like, right, we're going to wage war with Wakanda, you know? But Shuri came to Pepper, and it's like, right, Tony had some, like proof that, like, you know, he was behind all this, and she was able to find it. It's like, yeah, Tony was a genius, but he wasn't the only one. So it's like, right, we're gonna have to work together to make both of our countries see, like, what kind of a manipulator Eric is. So, like, his attempt to do this probably is going to end up, I'm curious, like, it might end up having a positive effect in the end, in the sense that this might bring Wakanda and the U.S. in a better relationship, and it might make them go, like, right, Eric only became this way because we had cut him out. Like, you know, what T'Challa's father had done in the past to his father. So, once again, it's like justice for my dad, but also justice for all the other oppressed people in the world. And so, ruling with the iron fist and, you know, ruthlessness that he will eventually rule with, he will be undone by it. And I wish that we could see how he was ultimately undone, you know? So that's just kind of an interesting element to consider in all of this. So it is a hopeful thing. It's not as, like, slightly depressing as, like, the past 2 episodes have been. Because I did like that line of, like, you know, heroes never really die, they live forever. You know, they're never really, like, even when they seem like they're gone, like, because even in the, like, it gives way to even more heroes, because obviously, like, Tony, like, you know, he still kind of lives on, I think, through Pepper, and even Shuri to an extent. Like, even T'Challa lives on through Shuri as well, to stopping. So I'd assume, like, in this continuity, she'd be, like, the mainline Black Panther, like, after Eric's kind of, like, removed from the equation. I'd assume, like, she'd be the one. So, and once again, it just kind of gets your mind racing about, like, there's a lot of things I feel like would stay the same, but I'm just curious, like, how these circumstances would shape a lot of the MCU going forward. Like, there's, like, because I said, like, there's a lot still out there in this universe, but certain things, like I said, certain things wouldn't come into play. What would come into play? What would change? You know, it's even sadder because, you know, in, like, you know, T'Challa, you know, thinking about, like, T'Challa becoming, like, the hero, like, because I think that's also what makes it even sadder too, because, like, Eric's perspective on things, T'Challa became, like, the universal hero he became once he became Star-Lord in episode 2. So, like, they kind of see, like, the inverse of that, just like how Eric being who he is, it's almost like, regardless of a universe, like, the fact is that he still is him at his core, that he is kind of, I mean, because that's the only shift, is that him saving Tony and being in a position where he can benefit from it. But, like, you know, every other aspect of, like, his dad dying, the oppression that exists in this world, like, it's just, you know, but once again, it's just a further example. Like, this and episode 2 are such neat parallels to each other, just to show you, once again, the parallels I made earlier, just like how different they operate. T'Challa's way of handling things versus Eric, you know? T'Challa's kind of more an open hand. You can make the argument, like, Eric's more with a closed fist. Like, an extending hand, whereas Eric kind of like punch to the face type of a tactic. I'm not doing a good job of kind of painting this analogy or the antidote that I'm trying to paint, but I hope it's coming across what I'm trying to get across. I just think that's such an interesting thing, that these episodes can, like, parallel each other, and just showing you just how vastly different their perspectives are, just like the movie did. Just in a like 2 different very different storyline, just showing you just that difference alone. But yeah, I'm really interested to see where the next episode ends up taking us with all of this. I do know there is a like mid-season trailer that came out. I haven't watched it. I don't want to watch it because I want to be kind of surprised about, because I am aware of some of the storylines that are still yet to come, but I still want to be surprised, like, oh, what's next? So, like, once again, at the time of recording these, I usually don't know. I usually find out, like, a couple days before the previous, before the next one airs, just because I listen to enough podcasts where people talk about this stuff, so that's where I end up finding out about, like, the next episodes. That's usually how that happens. But regardless, that's really all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.